Hello and welcome back to my channel. If we haven't met before, my name is Paris. I'm a fourth year medical student, soon to be PGY1, which is a first year resident in ophthalmology. I document a lot of my journey throughout medical school on my Instagram, and yesterday I asked you guys what questions you wanted answered, and you delivered. So sit down, relax, grab a coffee or tea. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, but I promise I'll try not to ramble too much. I have all of your questions here on my computer, so let's dive in. The first question I got a lot was, how is Morty? He is great. He is sleeping on the bed next to me, and he is just the happiest dog in the world since I am home now. Another question I got is, where do I get my jewelry from? The annoying answer is a lot of different places. I get a few pieces from Missouri every year. Honestly, I get some of them from Amazon. I get some from little shops that I find on TikTok, everything like that. I did get a new jewelry chest, this big guy, that I got from Amazon over the holidays. I absolutely love it. If you wanted a deeper tour of my jewelry collection or this particular organizer, let me know and I can do that. I do love jewelry, so if you have any questions or you want me to make more content about it, just let me know. Is it too late to start medicine at 25? My answer is absolutely not. You can go into medicine or the medical field or become a doctor at genuinely any age. I know that the average age of people that matriculate into medical school is getting older and older. People are taking more gap years in general and in life. Your journey is your own. Not all paths are linear. Not all two journeys look the same. So it truly depends on what you want in your life. 25 is not too old to start. Questions were about away rotations. How did I find them? How did I choose which ones to do? I had a very clear vision of kind of where I wanted to end up. My family is mostly in the Northeast. I'm from Queens in New York, and most of my family is within driving distance. That being said, I didn't actually want to stay in New York. I did pick my location strategically because I kind of wanted to show in my application that even though my entire application was based in New York, I didn't want to stay here. So I did one away rotation at the University of Maryland. I got to do a virtual rotation, which was important for me because after doing my rotation in Maryland, my finances were tight. I knew that I couldn't really afford to do another one unless I had somewhere I could stay that was close to the hospital, which worked out when I went to Brown for an away rotation. Another question was, did I do research in med school and was it worth it? Yes, I've done lots of research, and I personally, for me, find it is totally worth it. Doing research in a field lets you learn more about that field in a different way. It puts you in contact with connections and mentors and people in that field that you can talk to. And it allows you to go to conferences in that field. And specifically for ophthalmology, it's a very small world. It's a very small field. Everyone kind of knows each other. The conferences were absolutely incredible, just to meet friends in the field and get insight and get to nerd out with people that have the same interests for a weekend. My school, like a lot of schools, have different stipends or scholarships that you can use if you do research and then you present that research at the conference. A lot of times they'll provide funding for the conference, so I found that as a way to be able to attend these conferences because some of them are very expensive for students. Going off that, there's a question of how to find research in medical school. I did an Instagram post, again I'll link it below, that highlights a few different ways, but the most important way that I think is to literally just reach out to anyone you know doing research. So if you're in medical school, reach out to other students that you see that are doing research. You can reach out to any of the attendings that are in the different fields that you're interested in. Even if you just ask them hey, do you know where I find research? They often will be able to point you in the right direction. From my experience, the name of the game for research is it's a numbers game, meaning you might have to reach out to 10 people before you get one project. You would be very surprised how much you might find or get by simply asking. I went to one conference and I asked one of the people that I met if they were doing any research, and I'd love to help if they are, and then we ended up doing research together. So networking in itself is a massive tool, particularly for doing research and residency and all that jazz. So let me know if you'd be interested in a whole different video just about networking, because I have some tips. How do you plan breaks, vacation during rotations, and any advice on getting good sub-eyes. So for sub-eyes, I would really recommend you talk to the students at your school. There was also a question about should you do research on the different rotations before you pick your location for clerkships and things like that. I would really go to students at your school because they will know your locations and rotations best, in the same way as sub-eyes. So for my school, sub-eyes are very different. We have to do one, and there is no sub-eye in ophthalmology. So a lot of students that applied to ophthalmology chose internal medicine or pediatrics. I chose pediatrics. So as far as what a good sub-eye is, I would really talk to the people at your school and what your specific requirements are. All of the ophthalmology rotations that I did were all considered electives at my school. Some of my must-haves for third-year clinical rotations. One of my biggest pieces of advice is to get this little holder for your stethoscope, because although they don't weigh that much, I don't know about everyone else in medicine, I hate holding a stethoscope. Maybe it's the ophthalmologist in me, but it's just one little extra weight that's I don't know, it hurts my neck. The other must-haves are obviously a ton of pens. You can get this neat little clipboard. I had one, I found it really useful to take notes and to keep track of your patients and all that jazz. It fits in your white coat pocket. And last, the resources I found very helpful that I used a ton were Amboss, because you can have it on your phone, you can look up information, and everything on the app and site is all what you'll see on exams as well. So it's really nice to see what overlap there is between what's on the exams and what you're seeing in real life. Of course, UWorld, it's all the practice questions, you gotta do them all. And then third is I still used Sketchy. I used Sketchy for pharmacology, and I found it immensely helpful. What were your favorite 2 to 3 rotations during third year? I'd be remiss if I didn't say ophthalmology. I did also really love surgery. I really loved pediatrics. I really loved the content of neurology. Is there anything you wish you knew going into rotations? And I think that the overall thing that a lot of students have to understand going into rotations is that it will never be fair. I know that schools try, some more than others, I'm sure, to make things equitable and to make it fair across the board. Since clerkships are, some of the most important grades that you get in medical school, a lot of the other parts of medical school are turning into pass-fail, so these clerkship grades are becoming more important. That being said, I've truly never seen it be completely fair, and that's just the honest truth. Just show up, do your best, be curious, ask questions, and try to learn, because one day you're going to have patients of your own, instead of just being so dead set focused on just getting an honors, for example. Lots of other questions about surviving the clerkship year. Some of my biggest tips are to truly take care of yourself, know your limits, know what you're willing to sacrifice, and know what you're not willing to sacrifice. And this looks different for every single person. For example, myself, I prioritized sleep, my mental health, and then studying. And I know that that can be an unpopular opinion, because I did not want to turn into a shell of a human being during my clerkships. I really wanted to be present. I really wanted to try and not be jaded or get jaded too quickly. And that's not saying that's what you should do or what everyone should do. That's just my personal philosophy, especially with a lot of the perspective that I have after losing my dad and dealing with my own mental health in general. I feel very strongly about protecting that. And that's actually kind of a good segue to another question, which is, how did you deal with grief in medical school? If you didn't already know, I lost my dad a few months into medical school. It was without a doubt the hardest time of my life. It was very unexpected and really threw my whole world for a loop. If I'm being honest, I do think that the pandemic kind of helped a lot, because it meant that I didn't have to leave my house. I spent the majority of the first year after his death just kind of surviving, and that meant that I cried a lot. I cried through a lot of my exams. I was just kind of floating through medical school. I decided not to take a year off, again, just kind of for personal reasons. I found it easier to just stay ahead with the schedule that I had in place. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said that losing my dad in general was in any way, shape, or form not easy, but I wouldn't wish it on anyone, particularly being in medical school. It gave me a very different perspective of what was important and what wasn't. Kind of how I was saying, if my niece has a birthday and that happens to be the night before an exam, I'm gonna go to the birthday. I'm not going to sacrifice my loved ones and spending time with them with an assignment or an exam. I did make a blog post all about different resources I used. Also, if you know anyone that's grieving, I put some resources for like friends of grievers in that blog post as well. I'll keep it below. And if you have any other like more personal questions, feel free to reach out to me in my DMs. I'm literally always there. And the last few questions are all about being an ophthalmology candidate in particular. I also want to put the disclaimer that I will not be sharing any of my stats as far as my step grades, how many honors or versus high pass. I'm not going to share any of that. I don't think it's particularly helpful. So if that's what you're looking for, sorry. Can you go into depth on how you arrived on your decision to apply ophthalmology? Absolutely. So for me, I did not know when I started medical school what specialty I wanted to be in. Even when I started talking about ophthalmology, I think it was in my first year, it was more of an idea than something that I had been like dreaming of for a very long time. And I came to that idea from a few different things. One is I started noticing what I absolutely don't want, and that will, eliminate a few options for you. For example, I don't want to do shift work, and I don't want to work for like 12 hours at a time. Emergency medicine would not be for me. OBGYN would really not be for me. And then you start looking about what you do like. I love doing surgery, but I hate long surgeries and I hate standing for long surgeries. And that's silly, but that's something to know about yourself. I also have POTS, so it's really, really uncomfortable for me to stand for those periods of time, even when I wear my compression leggings that like come up to my waist. It just is very, very uncomfortable. So in ophthalmology, you get to sit down and you still get to operate. I also loved learning about neurology, but I don't like the practice of neurology. Start thinking about all of the different aspects of a field. Do you like studying the information? Do you like actually treating those diseases? Differentiating between what actually lights me up and makes me excited, and then what are my non-negotiables, things that I absolutely do want and absolutely don't want. And all of that kind of accumulated into ophthalmology. And I think the other really important thing is to just gather information, talk to as many people as you can, shadow as many people as you can. Within every single field, there's like a bajillion different ways you can go between academic, private practice. There's literally almost a limitless possibility. So talk to people in the field, see if that continues to, spark joy and make you excited. And particularly on very, very long days, right? Like if you did have to work a 12-hour shift, how excited would you be to return the next day? Well, did I consider a research year? No, I did not. I did not really speak to many of my mentors about this beforehand, but I had decided that I absolutely did not want to take a research year. If I did not match this year, I was not going to go into ophthalmology. In fact, I did dual apply. I was prepared on match day for the very real possibility that I wasn't going to match, and that is because ophthalmology, as a lot of people are asking, is very, very competitive. Last year the match rate was 68%, and for a myriad of personal reasons, I just really did not want to take a research year. And I know this video is also already very, very long, so if you want more in-depth answers about research years and all that jazz, let me know. Another question was, how did I push through times where I thought that ophtho was not going to be within reach for me? Again, I had a lot of very serious, conversations with myself and with my fiance about what kind of life we're looking at. And I genuinely came to this kind of like inner peace of thinking that it will work out the way it's supposed to. So I had my dream, right? My ophthalmology and all of these different places that I ranked. And if it worked out, I would have been over the moon. And if it didn't work out, I'm still going to be a doctor. And 4 years ago, when I got into med school, or when I was applying to med school, all I wanted in the world was just to get in somewhere. And then now, applying to residency, I was like, all I want is to just get into a ophthalmology residency. And then, you know what, in a few years I'm going to apply for a fellowship, and I'm going to think all I want is to get into one fellowship. And so I think you have to acknowledge that hedonic treadmill that we all are on, which is as soon as you get something that you want something else, and you kind of forget about how far you've come. And genuinely what kept me very also in that like state of peace, as corny as that sounds, is the fact that I gave it my all. I was very honest with myself of what I was willing to give, of the effort I was willing to give, all of the effort I could give, all of my scores, all of my CV, everything that I did, even the stuff on social media. I knew at the end of the day I was going to say, okay, I gave it my all, and if it didn't work out, it doesn't work out, but I don't have any regrets. And again, I think that part of that comes from losing my dad. It gives you a very different perspective of what's important and what's, quote, failure or not a failure. And I think it's just a very important perspective to have, is that you've already won. You're already in medical school. If you don't match into your dream specialty, or maybe at your dream residency location, like, it will be okay. Yes, you may be disappointed. Yes, you may be sad, but it will be okay. And that I don't want to take away from anyone's like emotion or say that it's not valid at all, but it's just the understanding that it will be okay. I just focus on being very, very grateful for what I do have and where I am, and everything else is just the cherry on top. So I think that's where I'm gonna stop for today. If you made it to the end, leave me an eye emoji. And thank you so much for asking the questions. I hope this was helpful. If you want me to answer anything more in depth, leave me a comment below. You can follow me on Instagram, so next time I do an Ask Me Anything, you can submit your question. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.